The alien jungle was alive with glowing lights and strange whispers, massive trees with silver leaves bent under the weight of mist, and the air smelled of wet stone and wild fruit. Ethan, a lone human explorer, walked carefully through the dense forest. His plasma rifle ready, he was searching for rare minerals. But tonight felt different, too quiet. Too still then, a scream cut through the silence, sharp and filled with fear. It was not human, yet it carried something familiar, pain and desperation. Ethan's heart raced. He turned his scanner toward the sound, and the radar blinked red. Something was moving fast, something big and more than one. He ran toward the noise. His boots sinking into glowing moss, branches slapped his face, and alien insects scattered in fear. As he reached a clearing, the sight before him froze his breath. An alien woman, tall and slender, her skin shining faintly blue, stood against a rock wall. 3 savage boars surrounded her, creatures with tusks like blades and eyes glowing red in hunger. She tried to fight with a broken spear, but the beasts circled closer. Her breaths came fast. Her voice trembled as she whispered something in her language. Ethan didn't understand the words, but he understood the fear. Without thinking, he raised his rifle and fired. Blue plasma burst from his gun, hitting the first boar square in the chest. The creature fell, screeching, its body glowing before turning to ash. The other 2 roared and charged at him. Ethan rolled aside, firing again, but his shot only grazed one. The larger beast rammed him, throwing him against a tree, his ribs burning with pain. The alien woman gasped, her silver eyes wide. She picked up a stone and threw it at the boar, shouting something like, "Behind you!" Ethan saw the reflection of red eyes in her gaze. He turned and fired. The final blast tore through the air, and the beast dropped just inches from him. The jungle went silent again. Only the heavy sound of their breathing filled the space. Ethan sat on the ground, coughing, while the alien woman stared at him in shock. Humans were myths to her people, stories told to scare children or inspire soldiers. And yet here stood one, real and breathing, who had just saved her life. "Are you hurt?" Ethan asked, his voice calm but tired. She flinched at the sound of his words, not understanding all of them. Her translator, hanging around her neck, blinked weakly, trying to decode his language. After a few seconds, she replied softly, "You help me?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, you're safe now." But his eyes scanned the shadows. Something about the jungle still felt wrong. The dead boars were dangerous, but they never hunted this close to the cliffs. Someone might have driven them here. The alien woman tried to stand, but her leg was bleeding badly. Ethan quickly tore a piece of his jacket and wrapped it around the wound. She winced but didn't pull away this time. Her hands were shaking, but she whispered something that sounded like "thank you." Her voice was soft, almost musical and filled with confusion. Then came a distant roar, not from an animal, but from engines. Ethan looked up and saw faint lights moving through the sky. Small hunter drones scanning the jungle with red beams. The woman's face turned pale. "They find me," she whispered, panic returning to her eyes. "Who?" Ethan asked, but she only said, "Bad men. They come for me." Ethan knew staying was suicide. He lifted her in his arms, light as a feather, and started running back to where his cruiser was hidden. Each step was hard, roots catching his boots, leaves slicing his skin, but he didn't stop. Even as the sound of drones grew louder behind them, red searchlights cut through the jungle. "Faster," she whispered, gripping his shoulder tightly. Ethan could feel her trembling, not from pain, but from fear of something bigger than the beasts. Finally, through the thick trees, the metallic shape of his cruiser appeared. Half buried under vines, he pressed his hand against the scanner, and the ramp opened with a hiss. "Get inside," he said. Setting her on a seat near the cockpit, she stared at the strange technology, amazed, frightened, and fascinated all at once. The engines hummed as the cruiser came alive, lights glowing blue under the floor. As the first drone appeared above the trees, Ethan pulled the control lever. The ship's thrusters roared. Kicking up a storm of leaves and dust, the alien woman gasped, clinging to the seat as the cruiser lifted off the ground. Outside, the jungle grew smaller, the red lights fading beneath the clouds. Ethan looked over at her. She was staring at him, her expression a mix of fear and wonder. She didn't know his name, his world, or why he saved her, but she could feel something in his eyes, a strange warmth she had never seen in her kind. He smiled faintly and said, "You're safe now. I promise." The cruiser vanished into the night sky. leaving behind the glowing jungle and the dead silence of the hunt. Neither of them knew that what began tonight, one human saving one alien woman, would soon change the fate of two worlds, forever. The cruiser sliced through the misty night sky, leaving trails of blue light behind. Inside, the air was filled with the hum of engines and the faint smell of smoke. Ethan kept one hand tight on the controls, the other pressing against a wound on his side. The alien woman sat behind him, clutching her armrest, her silver blue eyes wide with shock. She had never seen a human ship before. Not like this, small, fast, and built for survival outside. Thunder cracked as the cruiser broke through a storm layer, rain hissing across its metal skin. The woman whispered something in her language, voice trembling like a prayer. Ethan turned slightly. "You okay back there?" Her translator blinked, struggled, then finally spoke. "You? Take me where?" Ethan glanced at the radar, his face serious. "Away from the people chasing you." The translator processed the words and her brows furrowed. "You risk life for me? Why?" she asked, confusion heavy in her tone. Ethan gave a faint smile, though his eyes stayed fixed ahead. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said simply. She tilted her head, not understanding the meaning but feeling the emotion behind it. The ship rattled suddenly. Something had locked onto them. Red warning lights flashed across the control panel. "Damn it," Ethan muttered, tapping the radar. "They found us already." Lyra, he still didn't know her name yet, grabbed the seat tightly. "What happened?" she asked, the translator echoing her worry. Ethan pointed at the screen, showing 3 red dots closing in fast. "Drones," he said. "Small but deadly," she gasped, her skin dimming slightly, a reaction of fear her species couldn't hide. Ethan switched off the main lights, plunging the cabin into a dark glow of blue. The cruiser tilted sharply, dropping altitude to hide in the storm clouds. Lightning flashed around them. Bright and violent outside, the drones moved closer, their red eyes scanning through the clouds. Ethan bit his lip, sweat trickling down his temple. Come on," he whispered to the ship. A laser shot grazed the hull, making the whole craft shudder. The alien woman screamed softly, grabbing the edge of his chair. Ethan barked, "Hold on!" As he flipped a switch on the console, the engines flared, releasing a burst of energy that made the cruiser dive at full speed. The sudden drop pressed them against their seats. The woman closed her eyes, whispering again in her tongue. Ethan laughed a little despite the chaos. "Don't worry. I'm not crashing us yet." Another shot blazed past the window, and he pulled the cruiser hard to the right, flying between 2 mountain ridges. Rain streaked across the glass as the ship skimmed dangerously low. One of the drones tried to follow but slammed into a cliff, exploding into sparks. The other 2 stayed behind, searching, scanning, losing track. Ethan switched the power mode, killing their signature completely. Silence filled the cockpit. Only their heavy breathing remained. They were safe. For now. Ethan finally leaned back, wiping blood from his lip. The alien woman stared at him, her fear mixed with awe. "You fight like Storm," she said softly. The translator pausing between words, Ethan chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." She didn't reply but watched him closely, noticing the deep cut across his shoulder without a word. She tore a piece of her cloak and pressed it gently against the wound. He looked surprised. "You don't have to." "Quiet," she said firmly, and for a moment their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Gratitude, trust, maybe the beginning of something else. The translator blinked again and repeated her earlier question. "You saved me. Why?" Ethan looked out the window at the dark clouds below. He thought about Earth, about the people who would have done the same for him. "Finally," he said quietly. "Because that's what humans do. We help when we can, even if no one else would." She stared at him, her lips parting slightly in disbelief. Her world didn't work like that. No one risked themselves for another without gain. He wasn't just a human to her now. He was something impossible, something good. Then the radar beeped again, a faint rhythmic sound. Ethan frowned, leaning forward. "That's strange," he whispered. The woman tensed. "What now?" He zoomed in on the signal. It wasn't a drone, it was a pulse beacon. Coming from her cloak, he turned sharply toward her. "You have a tracker on you," she gasped, eyes wide, and ripped open the cloak. Finding a small silver device near the collar, Ethan grabbed it and threw it into the waste chute, ejecting it into the storm below. But it was too late. The beacon had already sent their location. Ethan's hands flew over the controls. "Hold tight," he shouted. The ship's engines roared again, launching them into open sky. Behind them in the dark clouds, more red lights appeared, 6 this time. The woman's voice trembled. "They come again." Ethan gritted his teeth, the determination in his eyes burning bright. "Then let's see how fast they can keep up," he said. Flipping the booster switch, the cruiser shot forward like lightning, leaving the pursuing ships far behind. The woman held onto her seat, her heart racing, her fear mixing with something new, hope. As the storm faded behind them and the stars opened wide ahead, Ethan finally exhaled, muscles tense but steady. He didn't know where he was taking her yet, but one thing was sure. He wouldn't let her fall back into the hands of whoever hunted her, and somewhere deep in her chest, for the first time, she believed him. The night had turned quiet again, but the silence was heavy. The stars stretched endlessly outside the cruiser's glass canopy. Glowing like cold fire, Ethan sat in the pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the scanner, watching every blip that appeared and vanished. He didn't trust the peace. He had seen too much chaos to believe in quiet skies. Behind him, the alien woman sat wrapped in a silver blanket, staring out at the stars. Her name, he had finally learned, was Lyra, and her voice carried a soft echo that made her words feel like music. She looked calm, but her trembling fingers told a different story to her people. Humans were myths, creatures of destruction and old wars, and now she was trapped in a small ship with one, flying far from her world. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. "You should rest," he said quietly. Her translator blinked before repeating his words. Lyra frowned. "Sleep. When hunted." Ethan smirked. "Fair point." He turned off the autopilot and stood up. The pain in his side flared again, but he ignored it, opening a small locker near the control panel. Inside were metal boxes filled with rations, tools, and bandages. He tossed one toward her. "Eat, it's food." Lyra caught it awkwardly, inspecting the small pack like it might bite her. She sniffed it, then wrinkled her nose. "Human food smell. Strange." Ethan laughed softly. "Yeah, well, so do you." Her eyes widened at his tone, unsure if it was insult or joke, but then, to his surprise, she smiled slightly, just a hint of amusement. Moments later, the ship jolted, shaking them both. Ethan ran back to the console, his fingers flying over the buttons. "No impact," he muttered. "But something's interfering with the systems." Lyra's body tensed, her instincts sharp. "They find us again?" He shook his head, scanning the display. "Not them." "This is different," he said, brow furrowed. A strange signal pulsed through the airwaves, like a heartbeat coming from deep space. The radar showed nothing nearby, yet the frequency was strong. It was as if something unseen was watching. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim blue light. "This signal. I know it," she whispered, her voice low and fearful. Ethan turned toward her. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, fingers gripping the console edge tightly. "It is from my World Science Council. They track energy. They want me back," Ethan frowned. "You said you escaped them. Why?" Lyra looked down, her voice shaking as she spoke. "My blood carries something they want. Energy code. From ancient core, deep under our planet." She pressed her hand to her chest, where faint golden veins pulsed beneath her skin. "They say it can restart the dying suns. But as it kills the host," Ethan's jaw tightened. "So they're chasing you to use you like a machine?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. My life for light." Her eyes lifted to his, filled with a mix of pride and sadness. "To them, I am tool. To you, I'm what?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He leaned against the console, staring at her, this fragile, glowing being who had just shattered his idea of the galaxy. Finally, he said quietly, "To me, you're a person who didn't deserve to die in a forest." Lyra's eyes softened, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You are strange, human." He smiled faintly. "I get that a lot." But the tender moment vanished when alarms began to beep again. Ethan's eyes darted to the radar. Something massive had entered their range. A large vessel moving fast. Its signature cloaked. He cursed under his breath. "How the hell did they find us this fast?" Lyra's hands trembled. "They not use normal sensors," she said. "They trace me through energy link. It cannot break." Ethan slammed his fist against the panel. "There has to be a way to block it." Lyra thought for a second. then looked at the glowing veins on her arm. "If my pulse stops, link breaks," she said quietly. Ethan froze, realizing what she meant. "You're not doing that." He rushed to the engine bay and pulled open a crate of spare parts. "We'll mask your signal another way," he said. Lyra followed, watching him connect wires and activate power cells. "What are you making?" she asked. "Something humans call a decoy," he said with a grin. A minute later, he attached a glowing crystal to the ship's hull and ejected it into space. The crystal blinked, mimicking her energy pulse, flying off in the opposite direction. Within seconds, the massive vessel changed course. Chasing the false signal, Ethan exhaled, sitting back in the pilot's chair. His heartbeat slowing, Lyra looked at him in disbelief. "You tricked Council ship alone?" He chuckled. "Humans are good at tricks." For a long while, they sat in silence. The stars slowly moving outside, Lyra studied him. The strange being who had risked his life again and again for her. "You fear nothing?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled, eyes still on the stars. "I fear plenty," he said. "I just don't let it stop me." Her voice was quiet now, almost a whisper. "You, different from stories," he turned toward her. "What stories?" She hesitated. "Stories say humans are monsters, wild and cruel, but you save. You care," he laughed gently. "Maybe your stories are outdated." Lyra looked down, her hands tightening around the blanket. For the first time, she felt something she couldn't explain. Trust, maybe even safety. The fear of the unknown still lingered in her chest, but now, the unknown was sitting beside her, smiling and calling himself human. Outside, the decoy signal drifted far away, but something else began to stir in the dark. The Council ship had sent a transmission before losing the trail. Far across the void, someone had seen Ethan's human signature, and whispered in disbelief, "Humans still exist." The stars outside glowed like frozen sparks as Ethan's cruiser drifted through the black void. Inside, the blue cabin lights flickered, and the hum of the engines was the only sound. Lyra sat in silence, her gaze fixed on the floor, while Ethan checked the systems again and again. Every few seconds, his fingers danced across the screen, eyes narrowing at each strange signal. He didn't like it. Something was out there hiding. It felt like being watched, like the space itself had eyes. Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft but trembling. "You think they gone?" Ethan sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I want to believe that, but no." He pointed at the radar screen. A faint blinking dot pulsed every 30 seconds. "It's weak, but that's no random noise. It's a tracking signal." Lyra's face turned pale, her silver glow fading slightly. "They never stop," she whispered. "Once Council mark a target, they send hunters." Ethan looked up sharply. "Hunters?" She nodded slowly. "Silent killers. Not soldiers, not machines, both. They don't talk. They don't miss." Ethan rubbed his temple, thinking fast. "If they're tracking you, they'll trace my ship too." Lyra lowered her head, guilt flashing in her eyes. "Then I bring death to you." He turned toward her, his tone firm. "No. You brought purpose." She blinked in confusion. "Purpose?" He nodded. "I didn't come to this side of the galaxy to hide. Saving you. Maybe that's why I'm here." For a moment, the fear in her eyes softened, but the ship jolted. An explosion of static on the radar made Ethan jump to the console. The signal grew stronger, faster, closer. "They found us," he muttered, voice low but steady. Lyra grabbed the seat beside him, her voice shaking. "We cannot fight hunters," Ethan smirked slightly. "I don't fight fair." He switched the ship's lighting to red alert, activating hidden panels on the walls. Small compartments opened, revealing pulse grenades and energy rifles. Lyra stared. "You prepare for war?" Ethan gave a short laugh. "No, I prepare for life." A metallic sound echoed through the cruiser, the sound of claws scraping against the outer hull. Lyra's breath caught. "They hear." Ethan grabbed his plasma rifle, his eyes calm and focused. "How the hell did they board in open space?" "They teleport through energy lines," she said, her voice shaking. "They smell the code in me." The lights flickered once, twice, then went dark, total silence. Ethan's night vision lens clicked into place as he whispered, "Stay behind me." Lyra hesitated, fear freezing her in place. But when she saw the faint red glow of something crawling on the ceiling, she moved closer to him. A low growl echoed through the dark cabin. Metallic and alive, Ethan turned slowly. His rifle aimed at the sound. He fired. The blue flash lit the room, and for a split second a shadowy figure appeared. It was tall, thin, made of metal and bone, its eyes like molten glass. The blast hit it straight in the chest, but it didn't fall. The creature turned its head slowly toward him. Unhurt, damn, Ethan hissed, stepping back. That armor's not natural. Lyra's hand glowed faintly, and the creature froze for half a second, its limbs twitching. I can stop it. For little time, she said, her voice trembling. Then let's make that time count, Ethan said, charging forward. He rolled beneath the creature's swinging blade, firing a burst into the back of its neck. Sparks flew and the creature staggered but still didn't fall. It reached for Lyra, but Ethan slammed a pulse grenade at its feet. Cover your eyes, he shouted, and the ship filled with blinding light. The explosion tore through the hull compartment, throwing both of them back. When the smoke cleared, the hunter's body twitched once and then fell still. Ethan coughed, the air thick with smoke and ozone. One down. Lyra looked at the remains, her voice a whisper. There are never just one. Ethan's radar confirmed it. A dozen signals now surrounded the ship. He cursed under his breath. We need to move. Now! He ran to the cockpit, pressing the engine ignition. The ship groaned, engines straining, but the power flickered weakly. Lyra limped forward. I help, she said, pressing her glowing hands against the power core. Energy from her body flowed into the engine. The lights brightened, systems came online. Ethan looked at her in surprise. You're powering the ship? She winced but nodded, only for short time. Go! The cruiser's engines roared, bursting out of the debris cloud behind them. More hunters crawled out of invisible portals, their eyes locking on the fleeing ship. Ethan pushed the throttle to maximum, the cruiser streaking toward a nearby nebula. Inside that storm they can't track us, he said. Lyra, pale and weak, nodded faintly, her voice barely a whisper. Then go, human. Go fast. The ship plunged into the glowing mist of the nebula, lightning flashing in every direction. Static energy danced across the hull as Ethan fought the controls. Behind them, the hunters followed but began to fade, disoriented by the magnetic storms. Finally, when the radar cleared, Ethan leaned back, exhausted. Lyra slumped against the wall, her skin dimming almost to gray. He rushed to her, worry sharp in his chest. Hey, stay with me. Her voice was faint. Too much power. I gave too much. Ethan held her hand tightly. Don't you dare quit on me now, outside. The nebula lightning flashed brighter, reflecting in her fading eyes. She smiled weakly, whispering, You fight, Storm. I trust you. Ethan's jaw clenched as he whispered back, You'll make it. Lyra, you have to. The hunter's signal faded behind them, but far away in the darkness of space, another ship received the transmission of their location. A voice echoed coldly through the void. Target escaped. Send the reclaimer. The nebula storm had finally faded. Ethan's cruiser drifted through a calm stretch of space, far from the Council's patrol lines. But peace had a price. His engines were damaged, his fuel was low, and the alien woman beside him was barely conscious. Lyra's skin, once glowing faint blue, had turned pale silver. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. Ethan sat beside her on the floor, pressing a cool cloth against her forehead, whispering, Hang in there, you're safe now. She stirred weakly, her voice little more than air. Safe? No one is safe. Near me. Ethan frowned, his rough hand brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. I don't buy that, he said softly. But inside he felt the growing weight of worry. She was getting weaker, not better. He rose and walked to the control panel, checking the radar. Empty space stretched endlessly in every direction, but a small moon glowed ahead. A silent, icy world. Perfect for hiding, he muttered. He guided the cruiser toward it, landing in a snowy valley surrounded by jagged rocks. The engines hissed softly as they shut down. For the first time in hours, Ethan exhaled. He wrapped Lyra in his old flight jacket, lifting her gently, and carried her outside. The cold air bit through his clothes, but he didn't care. He just needed her to wake up. Inside a small cave nearby, he started a fire using a plasma torch and broken wiring. The orange light flickered against the stone walls, reflecting on her motionless face. He looked at her, beautiful, alien, and full of mysteries he couldn't yet understand. Finally, she opened her eyes. Her voice was soft but clear. You should have left me. Ethan shook his head immediately. That's not an option. Lyra turned away, her expression pained. You don't understand, I am dangerous. Ethan raised an eyebrow sitting beside her. You've said that before, why? She hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. Then she lifted her sleeve, revealing faint golden lines running beneath her skin, glowing in rhythm with her heartbeat. When I said they want my blood, I meant it, she whispered. Ethan leaned closer, frowning. What is that? It's not blood, she said softly. It's energy. Living energy, part of the ancient core beneath my world. The council placed it in me when I was a child. Ethan's breath caught. They experimented on you? She nodded slowly, tears glistening in her strange eyes. I was supposed to be their key, a living battery to awaken dead suns. But when I grew older, I learned what it truly meant. They said when the process begins, it will burn everything inside me. My life, my memories, gone. Ethan clenched his fists, anger flashing in his eyes. Monsters, he muttered. They call themselves civilized, but they treat you like a weapon. Lyra looked at him quietly, then asked, And humans are different? He met her gaze without hesitation. Yes, we make mistakes, but we fight for those we care about. We don't use people like tools. For a long moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled between them, casting warm light over cold stone. Then Lyra whispered, You risk death for me, and you barely know me. Ethan smiled faintly. Knowing you doesn't change what's right. But before she could respond, the ground trembled. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He grabbed his rifle and moved toward the cave mouth. A faint hum vibrated in the air, followed by flickering lights above the snow. He looked up and froze. Small silver spheres hovered in the sky, scanning beams sweeping the surface. Search drones, Lyra said weakly. Ethan cursed under his breath. How the hell did they find us here? She looked at her arm and gasped. The golden veins under her skin pulsed faster. My body, it's broadcasting again. I can't stop it. Ethan turned back to her, eyes burning with determination. Then I'll stop it for you. He ran to the ship and tore open a maintenance panel, connecting power lines and data cables. Ethan, what are you doing? She called weakly. He didn't look up. If I can sync your biosignal to the ship's decoy, I might mask it. You'll overload your system, she warned. Then I'll overload it, he replied sharply, sparks flying as he forced the circuit. For a tense minute, the cave filled with the smell of ozone and burning wires. Ethan gritted his teeth as electricity jolted through his gloves. Finally, the console beeped. Success. The energy signature vanished from the scanners. Outside, the drones paused, hovered, and then turned away following the false signal. Lyra stared, astonished. You did it. Ethan fell back against the wall, exhausted but grinning. Told you. Humans are stubborn. She crawled closer, her fingers brushing his sleeve. Her eyes were soft, shimmering with something new. Gratitude mixed with something deeper. You should not care this much, she whispered. Ethan met her gaze, his tone gentle but firm. Someone should. She smiled faintly, her voice trembling. In my world, no one helps without reason. You help. With heart. He chuckled softly. Guess that's the human flaw. Outside, the firelight flickered against the icy walls as the storm began to fade. Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder, her golden veins dimming back to normal. For the first time since their meeting, she felt peace. But far above the silent moon in the blackness of space, a larger ship arrived. Its hull marked with the emblem of the Council. Inside, a cold mechanical voice spoke. Signal lost. Initiate planetary scan. Target must not escape. Ethan didn't know it yet, but the moment he saved her life. The war for both their worlds had already begun. The frozen moon slept under a dim blue sun, but peace here never lasted long. Ethan woke to the sound of distant thunder, not from weather but engines. He rushed out of the cave, snow crunching beneath his boots, and his heart sank. Above the white horizon, a massive black shadow broke through the clouds, an alien warship, its hull carved with glowing red symbols. Lyra stumbled out behind him, still weak, her golden veins flickering faintly. Her eyes widened, fear flooding her face. That's not a patrol ship, she whispered. Ethan adjusted the visor on his helmet. Then what is it? Her voice trembled. The Reclaimer. They send it when a target cannot escape. Ethan cursed under his breath, turning toward his half-repaired cruiser. The ship was resting in the snow like a sleeping beast, Engines cold, circuits humming faintly. He looked back at her, determination blazing in his eyes. We're not staying to find out what that means. He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the ramp. Inside, the cabin lights flickered to life. The power core whined as Ethan flipped every switch in reach. The ship trembled, groaning in protest. Come on, girl, he whispered to the machine. Don't quit on me now. Lyra dropped into the co-pilot's seat, fingers pressing to her temple. She closed her eyes, sending a faint pulse of energy through the control system. The panels lit up instantly, brighter and steadier than before. Ethan glanced at her. You did that? She gave a weak nod. For short time only. Move fast. Outside, the reclaimer's lights brightened and the air cracked with energy. Massive drones detached from its belly, descending like glowing meteors. Each one carried weapons the size of small buildings. Ethan gripped the controls. All right, Lyra. Let's show them what humans can do. The cruiser's engines roared to life, blasting snow into the air. The ship lifted off the ground, turning sharply toward open sky. Laser beams tore through the clouds behind them. Ethan pulled hard on the throttle and the cruiser spun sideways, dodging the first volley by inches. One shot grazed the hull, shaking the cabin violently. Lyra gasped, her hands gripping the sides of her seat. Shields dropping fast, she cried. Then we don't get hit again, Ethan snapped, sweat dripping down his temple. He flew low, skimming the mountain peaks, using the terrain to break the lock of the drones. Explosions followed close behind, the shock waves rattling the ship. He twisted the controls, sending the cruiser rolling through a narrow canyon of ice. The metal scraped rock. Sparks flew across the windshield. Lyra looked at him, eyes wide with disbelief. No alien pilot would fly like this, she said breathlessly. Ethan grinned through the chaos. Good thing I'm not one. As they burst out of the canyon, the reclaimer loomed ahead, an enormous fortress in the sky. Its cannons glowed, charging to fire. Ethan muttered, big ship, big ego. He switched the main weapon system to manual mode. The targeting screen flickered red, showing dozens of enemy locks closing in. Lyra saw them too and whispered, We can't fight all. Ethan replied calmly, No, but we can make them miss. He dove straight toward the warship. The cruiser shook violently as beams of energy cut through the air, each one narrowly missing by inches. The air itself shimmered with heat and static. Lyra held her breath, watching in awe as Ethan zigzagged through death itself. The human's reflexes almost unreal, guided by instinct, not logic. At the last second, Ethan pulled up hard, flying just beneath the warship's belly. He fired 2 pulse grenades into the reclaimer's undercarriage. They exploded in brilliant flashes, ripping through sensor panels. The great ship wobbled, momentarily blinded. Ethan shouted, Now, Lyra! She pressed her hands against the dashboard, releasing a surge of golden energy through the ship's systems. The cruiser glowed brighter, faster, pushing its speed beyond normal limits. They broke free from the enemy's range, streaking upward into the thin upper atmosphere. Behind them, the reclaimer's cannons tried to follow, but their targeting systems scrambled. They fired blindly, lighting up the clouds with wasted fury. Inside the cockpit, Ethan was breathing hard, his arms trembling from the effort. Lyra turned to him, still in shock. You fought a reclaimer, and lived. He gave her a crooked smile. Guess we'll be a myth to them now. But the relief didn't last. A new sound echoed through the cabin, a deep rising hum. Lyra froze, recognizing it instantly. They're charging the planetary disintegrator, she whispered in horror. Ethan's expression darkened. They destroy the whole moon just to get one person? Yes, she said softly, to make an example. Ethan stood, grabbing a small black case from under the pilot's seat. Inside were energy pods, unstable experimental weapons he swore never to use. Lyra's eyes widened. What are those? Last resort, he said, loading them into the cruiser's launcher. Get ready to see what humans do when they're out of options. The reclaimer's main cannon began to glow, drawing power from its core. The air vibrated with deadly energy. Ethan waited until the last possible moment, then fired all 4 pods straight into its core. The screen went white. A thunderous explosion tore through the sky. The reclaimer's hull cracked, fire spilling into the void. Lyra shielded her eyes, feeling the shockwave through her bones. When the light faded, the massive ship was broken, falling toward the frozen moon below. Ethan's cruiser spun out of control, alarms blaring. He fought the stick with both hands, teeth clenched. Hold together, hold together. The ship dropped through the atmosphere, smoke trailing behind it. Lyra reached out, pressing her glowing hands against the controls, adding what power she could. The engines sputtered, coughed, then steadied. They crashed through the last layer of cloud and skimmed the ice before slowing to a stop. For a long moment there was silence. Then Ethan laughed, half from relief, half from disbelief. Lyra stared at him, eyes filled with wonder. "You destroyed a reclaimer," she said quietly. He leaned back, smiling faintly. "No, we did." Outside, fire rained down from the wreck of the great ship. And deep in that light, the Council would finally realize humanity wasn't extinct. It was back. The icy moon lay quiet again, but the silence was no longer peaceful. It was the kind that follows a storm, heavy with smoke and secrets. Pieces of the reclaimer still burned across the horizon, glowing orange in the endless white snow. Ethan stood near his damaged cruiser, wind biting through his torn jacket, staring at the falling wreckage that marked their victory and the beginning of something larger. Inside the cruiser, Lyra stirred awake. Her energy veins glowed faintly, golden against her silver skin, but the light flickered, weak, unstable. She turned her head toward the cockpit and saw Ethan standing there, tired, covered in ash, and smiling like a man who had just faced death and laughed in its face. "You're alive," she whispered, voice trembling. Ethan turned toward her, his tone calm but warm. "Yeah, though the ship might not be for long." He stepped closer, sitting on the edge of her seat. "You did good back there, Lyra. Without you, we'd both be space dust." She looked at him for a long moment. Her lips trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper. "I have never seen courage like yours," she said softly. Ethan shrugged, smiling faintly. "You haven't met enough humans." Outside, thunder rolled again, not from the sky, but from the reclaimer's collapsing remains. The sound echoed across the frozen valley like the roar of a dying god. Ethan looked out the window, his smile fading. "They'll send more, won't they?" Lyra nodded. "They will not stop. The Council will not accept defeat." Her eyes drifted to the golden glow beneath her skin. "As long as I live, they will hunt me." Ethan exhaled, standing and stretching his shoulders. "Then we make them regret it." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "Make them regret?" He looked at her, his expression hardening with quiet resolve. "You said they use people. They treat life like a tool. Well, where I come from, we protect those who can't fight back. So if they want to come for you, they'll have to go through me first." She stared at him, eyes wide, speechless. Her translator blinked, struggling to find the right words, but no translation was needed. She understood him perfectly. A long silence filled the cabin. Outside, light from the burning wreck danced across the snow, casting shifting shadows over their faces. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice almost a whisper. "If I stay, they will come again. You will die." Ethan smirked. "I've been told that before." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "But here's the thing, Lyra. You don't run anymore. Not from them. Not from what they did. You've got me now, and I don't run either." Her eyes softened, the faintest smile curling her lips. "You, human, are impossible," he laughed. "That's the general opinion." Then the ground shook again, not from the reclaimer's remains, but from something deeper. The scanner beeped faintly, displaying a signal underground. Ethan frowned. "What now?" Lyra's eyes widened. "This moon, it's not dead." The snow cracked beneath their feet as light began to rise from the surface itself. Lines of ancient symbols glowing through the ice, spreading like veins of gold. Lyra stood, eyes wide with recognition. "It's a memory core," she said in awe. "A relic from the first builders of my world. It responds to the energy in my blood." Ethan's eyes widened. "You mean, it's alive?" "In a way," she whispered. "It holds knowledge older than the Council. If I can connect to it, maybe we can find a way to stop them forever." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then let's do it." She hesitated. "If I connect, it may drain me. I may not survive." He stepped closer, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Then I'll make sure you do." She looked up at him, for the first time without fear, and pressed her palm against the glowing ice. Light exploded outward, filling the valley. Symbols spun through the air like floating stars. Ethan shielded his eyes as a low hum filled the ground beneath them. Lyra's body glowed bright gold, merging with the core's light. Then through the roar of power a deep voice echoed, ancient, mechanical, and yet full of sorrow. Human presence detected, forgotten kin of the Makers, you have returned. Ethan froze, staring at the golden projection that took shape before him. A towering figure made of light and data, half machine, half divine. Lyra gasped, falling to her knees, her energy flickering wildly. Ethan stepped forward, his heart pounding. What are you? The voice answered, the guardians of creation. We built the stars you live under. Long ago your kind helped us. Humans were the first alliance, but then you vanished. Until now. Ethan's breath caught. Lyra stared at him in shock. Humans and we're builders? He nodded slowly, awe dawning in his eyes. Guess we've got some history to rewrite. The golden being's voice deepened. The council has corrupted our purpose. Restore the balance, human. Reclaim the light. We will guide you. The light dimmed, leaving silence once more. Lyra collapsed, weak but alive. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground, whispering, It's okay. You did it. She looked up at him, voice soft and fading. Then, it begins again. Human and alien. Together. He smiled faintly. Together. Outside, the storm cleared, revealing a new dawn. 2 suns rising side by side over the horizon. And as the light spread across the frozen world, Ethan lifted his gaze to the stars, knowing this was only the beginning. The galaxy had forgotten humanity. But now it would remember.